Well, it's always a good time when you have 5, and if I include myself, 6 women calling the shots. It's always a good time to chat. So thank you so much for joining me. So novelist John Berger had said, men act, women appear, men watch, women watch themselves being watched. So it was male gaze that basically was the narrative. But now with you all ladies leading from the front, do you think things have changed?
Yes, of course. I mean, they are going to change. They're already changing.
So, Sooni, I'll start with you because go back a long way with you and the Mira Association. And how have you, from Salaam Bombay to Yeh Ballet, emotionally, mentally made that switch to the OTT platform?
It's a new world, it's a brave new world, and I'm delighted to enter it because I feel I was always marginal before with the kind of films I made, which is with no stars. And now I'm in a situation where I've made a film with no stars. I've got a very healthy budget to make it, thanks to Netflix. And so it's a sea change for me, and I feel reborn.
And Ruchi, Guilty just is about to premiere, and is it something very different from what you've done before? And also you had said that the male actors, the top stars, were a little wary of being cast, so tell us a bit about that.
Well, it wasn't actually that they were wary of being cast in this film. It was a different film that I had written, which was led by male protagonists. And when I was trying to cast for that film, though everybody seemed to love the script, and of course everyone wants to work with Dharma, we couldn't actually cast that film. And eventually Karan did tell me, he said, I have a feeling it's just because you're a woman, they have a problem. And I was so angry and upset with that, that I think that anger and upset fueled me into writing this film, Guilty, which though it's basically about the injustice of inequality, and the extreme manifestation of that, of course, in terms of gender, is sexual assault. So that's why the film is about that. And when you deal with a subject, then as a writer or a director, you want to explore all sides of it. Because any kind of injustice, whether it's gender, whether it's class, caste, anything to do with privilege, it affects both sides.
Yeah, true.
It changes people's behavior on both sides. So that's the kind of complexity and confusion that I wanted to get in, which makes it a more human story. Because everyone does have a point of view,
True.
whether we like it or not. We may have our fears, but even the, men have fears and concerns. So I thought it would be a richer conversation to explore both those angles.
And Anvita, they call you the lady who weaves magic with her songs. So tell us about your own observations in comparison to when you began and now. How has that changed, the narrative?
So it's a little different for writers. We never get cast for a film because of our gender.
Yeah.
We get picked up because of our writing. As we were talking earlier, Gulzar Saab has written some of the most feminine and delicate lyrics that we know. Very sensitive writers are there who are male. So it's actually not your gender, it's what you bring to the story. Yeah. Yes, what can tend to happen is, like for example, say I'm from Punjab or you're from Bombay, and there's something that you know of your world because you belong there. So sometimes you will, just like that, bring something to the story because you belong to the world of being a girl or a woman. That much, yes. But in terms of difference, the only difference is that there are a lot more female lyricists now than when I came in. But one of the first few female composers ever in the film industry were women.
Yeah.
So it's not like it hasn't happened before.
Yeah, true.
Sometimes you also, it's almost like you, when you hear of someone who's a lyricist or a writer, and you know of their journey, it kind of gives you a permission, ki, acha ye main kar sakti hu. So that is what happens with writers. I do understand that it exists and there is a huge mismatch in numbers as far as the gender is concerned,
Yeah.
but that's not the narrative that I've had to deal with as a writer.
And Shivani and Seher, I mean, both of you have produced a film also for Netflix. So what do you think women want from women in cinema, and how does one bridge that gap between consumer and...
Interesting. I'd say representation and just relatability. And that's one thing exciting right now about being a filmmaker in general, not just a producer, writers, directors, actors of the sort. What we have to see more on, and just picking up on what Anvita said, it's not just the female gaze, it's the feminine gaze that's actually coming up front. It's not gender specific anymore. You know, you've got great male directors as well who just bring out the best in their feminine and female characters. So definitely I'd say that, you know, in terms of representation, allowing to bring those kind of characters and stories to the screen, any screen, whether it's the silver screen or online, in terms of characters you can relate with, and somewhere you don't have to keep hunting and seeing, you know, am I anywhere to be seen in a larger platform? And that's what's so good about stories now. You can see yourself on the screen, and that really helps, whether you call it validation or anything, but it's definitely relatability, and that's extremely important these days.
Yeah, I think it's sort of widening richness of stories, different perspectives, because there have been kind of set stereotypes.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what women get from other women is a certain sensitivity, because we've sort of been used to a certain way of looking at characters. Actresses, the way that those characters were written earlier, I think that's sort of opening up. And also the other thing I think that happens with women producers is that you want to work with more women creators. And I think, so just overall, it kind of really opens up the space for everyone.
Also, this is to all of you. Where do you feel Indian cinema, especially one created for women, comes under the Bechdel test?
Interesting.
I think it must be pretty abysmal.
Quite kind of. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it depends on the story. For example, Yeh Ballet is mostly a story with boys and male characters, and it's a true story, so there's nothing that I can do about that. So I think it would fail the Bechdel test. But the few women I have, or the one character I have, who I don't want to name because she's nameless in the film, would pass the Bechdel test.
Yeah, she would.
It's also not just about on camera, I'd say, behind the camera as well.
Yeah.
That's one thing we're very excited about. I mean, just the sheer talent behind the camera now. Everyone from running on the set to your technicians to people in post. So in that way, I think we're getting there. But yeah, I mean, it's still
I mean,
tiny.
it gives Shivani and me a lot of joy when you have, you know, an HOD walks into our office and says, wow, there are so many women HODs on this project.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes us, yay, in some way.
I think it's, yes, the numbers, like I said, it's looking up lots more women. And again, it's to do with exposure. You know, we come from that generation where we had the usual doctor, engineer, then it became cooler and there were fashion designers and things like that. There's certain things that you look at, even when I came to the industry, there was this thing of looking at, she's a stylist, so therefore it's a woman, or hair and makeup and things like that. But today, women themselves, when we are not talking about, we're not focusing on our gender, because biology has nothing to do with intellect. So when you're focusing on what you want to do, so more and more girls are coming into the fray because of that. I feel just that mindset, and hopefully it'll just keep changing, because it's all about telling stories and relating and being just great human beings, and hopefully that is what is going to change the numbers as well.
I want to go back to your first question then about OTT, and I think that's really made a huge difference in providing that kind of platform, opportunity, volume, just, you know, because there's just that much more work that's happening, and the types of things that you can now say. So I think it's, you know, we're all very, very grateful.
Yeah, places like Netflix give us an opportunity to tell so many different kinds of stories that again creates that much kind of work, that much kind of opportunity, and therefore the numbers increase, both men and women.
True. And feminism and femininity. So how does one make an intersection between the two so it becomes appealing for the masses?
So,
It's a much longer discussion.
एक math का question डाल दे और
the ratio is
Hence proof.
You said how do you make it appealing for the masses?
Masses, yeah.
There's only so much we can do in terms of changing perception and how receptive someone is. I mean, I guess we're probably doing our best. Sometimes there isn't a line. Sometimes you can't tell there's a line because it's just who we are and the kind of people we work with and the stories we're telling. But it's also, I mean, the audience is evolving. I mean, the kind of stuff they're watching, the things they want, absolutely. And they're not limited to going to theaters anymore. We've got so many more screens now. If we go to the really old school approach, there's just millions of more screens now. So those many more audience members.
I think because there's fewer restrictions in the types of stories that lends to exactly this. You can kind of widen what is the notion of a woman, femininity. There's more room for grey, which earlier it wasn't. I mean, I think women's roles were very boxed in a certain way. I think so just the richness of stories and everything is opening up, and that gives you room to explore. So,
like I also feel that one of the best things that's happening now with more women who are in control of the storytelling is that women are being projected not as only noble. One of my biggest grouses as a woman when I watched other films is, I mean, either they are like bad or they always have to be noble. They always have to be selfless and everything is for someone else. But what about them? What do they want? What is their ambition? What is their flaw? That's what makes a character real, whether it's a man or a woman. But somehow the women were not allowed to have those flaws. They always had to be doing everything in a noble way. So I feel the biggest liberation with women actually creating and portraying characters is that you will see them doing wrong things, which they really shouldn't be doing. And that was a mistake, and oh God, why did you do that, or how could she do that? That is what I want to see.
I mean, it comes from our personal experience then, right? And so because that's opened up, you're like, okay, that's not the only thing that I have experienced in life. It is a little bit different, so let's show that, and that I think is what makes it relatable. More women, just everyone then gets to see a more rounded kind of world experience.
And also the word feminist, I just want to talk about that when you said feminist and feminine.
Yeah, because they look
feminist,
at they look at women feminists as feminism. There's a
feminist is
perception.
something. It's actually again it's something that they think is when you get onto a soapbox and cry yourself hoarse about something. It's not that. It's like how someone is compassionate. You could be a feminist. Men can be feminists. So it has nothing to do with. So I'm a woman, so I'm going to tell you this male bashing kind of a story. I'm just going to tell you a good story, regardless of my gender. That is what we are here to do. That is why we are all sitting at this table. It's because we just want to tell a good story, spin a yarn, call you close and say, "Pata kya hua?" That's all.
From what Ruchi said, it's been a very traditional dichotomy. Either you're Madonna or you're a, and Hindi films have perpetuated that. As Ruchi said, that has been shattered, and that's a very good thing, because as a writer, as you also said, you want to look at the spectrum of human experience. You don't want to be dealing with these two extremes that have actually been a kind of male, extreme that has been thrust upon us. So that is very exciting to break that.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's
Thank
asking
you
me to wrap up. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you all.
Likewise.
More power to you.
Thank you
so
to
much.
you as well.
Thank you.